Dawn of the Duel arc is the final arc of the Yu-Gi-Oh series. And while it doesn't feature very many duels, the ones it does have are absolute bangers. Today we're going to go through all of them, turn by turn, and analyze to see if there were any alternative plays that could have changed the outcomes of the duel. Let's jump into the duels. The duel begins and Bakura goes first. He draws, and his opening hand consists of Headless Knight, Earl of Demise, Polymerization, Diabound Colonel, Spirit Illusion, and Mirror Tablet. Bakura immediately activates Polymerization, fusing his Headless Knight with Earl of Demise to summon the Duke of Demise. Its effect makes it so it can't be destroyed by battle. However, Bakura must pay 500 life points during each of his standby phases if he wants to keep this monster on the field. Bakura ends his turn. Was it the right move for Bakura to hold those two traps in his hand and not set them face down? It's fine. Not a big issue. They wouldn't have helped him just yet. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws. Oh my god, what's wrong with your chin? I'm so sorry, that was really insensitive. His opening hand consists of Force Raider, Lord of D, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Shrink, Silent Doom, and Attack Guidance Armor. Kaiba summons his Force Raider to the field. With only 1900 attack, it's unable to get over Duke of Demise. So he activates his Shrink spell, which halves the attack of a monster on the field. He halves Duke of Demise's attack. Kaiba orders Force Raider to attack into Duke of Demise. While it's not destroyed, Bakura still takes the damage. As Kaiba ends his turn, the Duke of Demise's attack returns to normal. Now, I just want to point out that Kaiba was aware of Duke of Demise's ability to keep itself alive, yet he still went with this Shrink play. Was it a good move? Not really. I think he would have been much better off setting that Shrink face down and waiting for the counter attack, because it's a little bit of damage. Regardless of what Bakura does next turn, he can just slam his monster into his monster. So why not hold onto that Shrink? You might be able to tank that attack and then potentially another attack, worst case scenario. And I'm curious to see, would Bakura have still summoned what he's about to summon, his Diabound Colonel, on the next turn, getting rid of this monster? I think he would have, because he doesn't want to pay the 500 life point cost every turn. And if he would have had that on the field, it wouldn't have actually saved him, now I think about it, so I guess it's fine. But I think Shrink was just worth holding on to. It's back to Bakura, and he draws Spirit Shield. The standby phase occurs, and Bakura pays 500 life points to keep Duke of Demise on the field. Bakura tributes Duke of Demise to summon his boss monster, Diabound Colonel. This monster can equip or unequip itself to a monster on the field. While equipped, that monster loses attack equal to this card's attack. If the equipped monster leaves the field through destruction, this monster resummons itself back to the field. Bakura follows up this play by activating his equip spell, Spirit Illusion. He equips it to Diabound Colonel. Once equipped, a doppelganger token of the monster is summoned to the field, with the exact same stats and effect for as long as this card remains equipped to that monster. Bakura activates the effect of the doppelganger Diabound, equipping it to Kaiba's Force Raider, reducing its attack by 1800. Bakura moves into his battle phase and attacks and destroys Force Raider with Diabound Colonel. Doppelganger Diabound Colonel then resummons itself back to Bakura's side of the field. Bakura sets his Spirit Shield trap face down and ends his turn. It's Kaiba's turn, and he draws the Flute of Summoning Dragons. Kaiba summons his Lord of D to the field. He then activates his Flute of Summoning Dragon, which has the effect that if Lord of D is on the field, he can now summon up to 2 dragons in his hand. He summons Blue Eyes White Dragon. Kaiba enters his battle phase and attacks Diabound Colonel. Thanks to Lord of D's effect, Dragon-type monsters can't be targeted by the effects of spell, trap, and monsters. Because of this, Bakura activates his set, Spirit Shield. Now, by banishing a fiend or zombie monster from his grave, he can negate an attack and end a battle phase. However, if there are no fiend or zombie monsters in the grave, this card destroys itself. Bakura banishes his Headless Knight in the grave to immediately end the battle phase. Kaiba sets his Attack Guidance Armor face down and ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Pot of Greed. He activates it immediately, allowing him to draw 2 new cards. He gets Rebirth Tablet and Grief Tablet. Unable to equip his Diabound Colonel to Kaiba's Blue Eyes White Dragon due to Lord of D's effect, he has to play around this. So he activates Grief Tablet, equipping it to Kaiba's Lord of D. The equipped monster now cannot attack, change its battle position, and its effects are negated. Also, when Grief Tablet is sent to the grave while equipped to a monster, 500 damage is dealt to the owner of that monster. Now, with Lord of D's effect negated, Bakura is free to target dragon monsters with card effects. He equips his doppelganger Direbound Colonel to Kaiba's Blue Eyes White Dragon, reducing its attack by 1800. The original Direbound Colonel attacks Blue Eyes White Dragon, attempting to destroy it. Now, I actually think it's quite important for me to jump in here and say that Bakura's goal this entire duel is to destroy Blue Eyes White Dragon with Direbound Colonel. Why? Because it has an out-of-duel ability that it can absorb the powers of the monster it destroys. He wants to do this so he can absorb Blue Eyes White Dragon's Burst Stream of Destruction, because Burst Stream of Destruction is actually so powerful, it can fight against gods with it. And he wants this for the final climax of the series. It's all out of duel stuff. It's not important for duel analysis. Basically, if he achieves that, Bakura has essentially won this mini game going on that Kaiba doesn't know about. Anyway, back in the duel, Direbound Colonel is about to attack Blue Eyes and destroy it. However, Kaiba activates the effect of his set Attack Guidance Armor, which redirects the attack to his Lord of D instead. It's destroyed. Since Grief Tablet was sent to the grave, a further 500 damage is dealt. Bakura ends his turn by setting Rebirth Tablet and Mirror Tablet face down. It's Kaiba's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets Card of Demise. He activates it. Now, this card allows him to draw until he holds 5 cards. However, he must discard his entire hand 5 turns later, which, once again, that is one of the most broken anime cards that exists. That's crazy. Kaiba draws 4 new cards. He gets Soul Release, a second copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon, Monster Reborn, and a mysterious card. First of all, Kaiba deals with Bakura's Spirit Shield by activating Soul Release. This card lets him banish up to 5 cards in the grave. He banishes Bakura's Earl of Demise and Duke of Demise. Since there are no fiend or zombies in the grave anymore, Spirit Shield destroys itself. Following this, Kaiba plays his Silent Doom, which lets him special summon a normal monster in his grave. However, it's summoned into defense and it cannot declare an attack. He summons Vorse Raider. He tributes Vorse Raider and Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is equipped with the Doppelganger Direbound Colonel to summon the second copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon. The Doppelganger Colonel is permanently removed from the field. Kaiba enters his battle phase and attacks and destroys the original Direbound Colonel. After its destruction, Bakura activates his Rebirth Tablet, which lets him summon a monster in his grave to the field if one of his monsters was just destroyed by battle. He summons back Direbound Colonel. He then activates his last trap, Mirror Tablet. When one of his monsters is destroyed by battle, this card lets Bakura increase the attack of one of his monsters by half the attack of the monster that destroyed that monster, and forces it to attack this card. Direbound Colonel gains 1500 attack, half the attack of Blue Eyes White Dragon, and Blue Eyes White Dragon is forced to attack into Direbound Colonel. Direbound Colonel destroys Blue Eyes White Dragon. Following the battle, Direbound Colonel's attack returns to normal. Kaiba, possibly moving into his main phase 2, though this could be happening in his battle phase, activates his Monster Reborn, bringing back his Blue Eyes White Dragon. Unfortunately, at this moment, the sun begins to rise. Bakura abruptly ends the duel. There is no clear winner to the duel, however Bakura has won the mini-game as he was able to destroy Blue Eyes White Dragon and absorb its Burst Stream attack. The duel begins and Yugi goes first. He draws and his opening hand consists of Marshmallow, Silent Swordsman level 0, Marshmallow Glasses, and 3 mysterious cards. Note that this duel, Yugi using a completely new deck, basically got to fabricate the cards he wanted to, of cards that exist in the real world, and this is the deck he came up on the fly with. So this is his first time using these cards ever. He states it during the middle of this duel, and I think it's really impressive that he goes on to win, because he's built a really cool strategy around this, and obviously it's about evolving monsters, which is a representation of Yugi getting stronger over the course of the series. All things like that, and it's more of Yugi's playful side. He's kind of got like that toy kiddie thing, so some of the cards are a little bit kiddish, but I always find it really interesting. And you might be asking, what are those 3 mysterious cards, Sam? Well, at the end of this duel, he's going to have 6 mysterious cards in his hand, so it's kind of wacky, but I'll talk about it more when we get to the end of the duel. Yugi sets his continuous spell, Marshmallow Glasses face down, along with his Marshmallow, and ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws. His opening hand consists of Doom Caliber Knight, Disgraced Mage, Negate Defense, Narrow Corridor, Spirit Sword of Sealing, and Zoa the Spirit. Bakura summons his Doom Caliber Knight to the field. He uses it to attack Yugi's set monster. The monster is revealed to be Marshmallow. Since it was flipped up via battle, due to its effect, it inflicts 1000 damage to the opponent. Bakura takes the first damage of the duel. As well, Marshmallow's second effect is it can't be destroyed by battle, so it remains on the field. Bakura ends his turn by setting Doma the Spirit face down. Now, Bakura potentially has 2 alternative plays here. One of the cards he's got in his hand is Negate Defense, which switches a monster that is in defense or face down defense into face up attack, and it's stuck in that position. He could have done this. This was a perfect opportunity to do it. So 1, he wouldn't have taken 1000 damage from attacking into the Marshmallow, and 2, he could have just slammed his monster into that monster. I can only assume he didn't want to waste this card on something so early. He does end up using it on this card, but I can understand not wanting using it straight away, but it definitely feels like a misplay not using it, because this would have been an absolute metric ton of damage to get in so early in the duel, and I'm pretty sure it would have led to a cascade event where there's so much damage dealt now, Yugi probably would have lost after all the damage he takes a little bit later, but I guess we'll keep our eyes on that. If we would have done 1600 damage here, what would have happened? Well, we're going to find out. And what was the other ability? Well, he could have used his Spirit Sword of Sealing to seal this card and banish it for a while, which would have been a good move. But again, I think this is the same situation where maybe he doesn't want to waste this on such a small card. We don't know what it is just yet. It could be just be a non-threat, so I kind of understand. But that would have been 1900 damage to Yugi's face. That would have been very powerful. Let's see how things play out. It's back to Yugi, and he draws Turn Jump. He sets it face down immediately and then summons his Silent Swordsman level 0. This monster has the effect that its level increases by 1 during every one of Yugi's standby phases, and each time it does, it gains 500 original attack. Yugi follows up this play by making sure Silent Swordsman stays safe long enough to level up, so he activates his set Marshmallow Glasses. Now, while this card and Marshmallow are face up on the field, the opponent can only attack Marshmallow. Yugi ends his turn. Fun fact, Yugi could have gone on the offensive here. He could have activated his Turn Jump spell in his hand to move the turn clock forward by 3 during the battle phase to make his Silent Swordsman strong enough to destroy Doom Caliber Knight. Seems like a good play in theory, but it actually would have cost him. It's lucky that Yugi didn't do that, knowing how the duel is going to go. So I think having this card as a reactionary thing is a good thing, so it's okay. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Call of the Earthbound. Bakura activates his Negate Defense spell, which switches a monster on the field into attack and makes it so that monster cannot change its battle positions. Bakura switches Marshmallow into attack. Bakura slams his Doom Caliber Knight into Yugi's Marshmallow. Marshmallow isn't destroyed by the battle, but Yugi still takes the damage. Bakura sets his Call of the Earthbound face down and ends his turn. And it's about here in the duel where I have to say, yeah, Bakura should have won this duel already. So if he would have used that Negate Defense on the last turn on the Marshmallow, attacked with the Doom Caliber Knight, he'd have done 1600 damage. This turn, he could do another 1600 damage, and then if he also would have summoned his Disgraced Mage, he could have done even more damage going for game. Misplay Bakura, cost you the duel, unfortunately. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws a mysterious card. The standby phase occurs and Silent Swordsman's level and attack increases. Yugi enters his battle phase. However, Bakura activates his Call of the Earthbound and then chains his Zoma the Spirit to it. Zoma resolves first, allowing him to summon it as a trap monster to the field. It has the effect that if it is destroyed by battle, the battle phase immediately ends and then it inflicts damage to the opponent equal to double the attack of the monster that destroyed it. Call of the Earthbound resolves next. This card lets Bakura force one of Yugi's monsters into battling one of his monsters. He chooses Silent Swordsman to attack Zoma the Spirit. It is destroyed. Thanks to the effect of Zoma, since it was destroyed by a battle, Yugi must now take double his monster's attack as damage. If this play is successful, Bakura will win the duel. However, Yugi activates his quick play, Turn Jump. This card immediately skips to the third battle phase after this battle phase. 3 turns move ahead, meaning Silent Swordsman evolves 3 times. As well, because of the turn skipping, Zoma the Spirit's effect was nullified. And you might be asking, how does that nullify the ability? Well, let's go in the timeline. So we're moving along, Silent Swordsman enters the battle phase, the traps activate, he attacks into it. The next thing that's about to happen is damage being dealt to Yugi. However, Yugi plays the turn skip, which I can only assume jumps over the damage and moves us ahead in the future. So we never actually did this, we moved past it into the future. That's the way I would describe it, like in my head, how you can dodge damage like that. So yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm not going to call a misplay for this because yeah, that makes sense to me. However, what I am going to call a misplay for is Bakura. Bakura was way too frothing at the mouth to do this combo. Yugi was in his battle phase and was starting to do something with a card in his hand, which I have no idea what he was going to do because I assumed the only play he could do was using turn jump so he could attack over Doom Caliber Knight, but turn jump was set on his field. So then what was this card in Yugi's hand he was about to use? He never uses it for the rest of the duel, but apparently would have done something here. If this is just a continuity error and Yugi was always intending to use turn jump, but the animators just forgot where it was, then had Bakura waited, he could have used his trap combo to force the attack after this. He would have won since Yugi would no longer be able to dodge. I guess the only defense would that be is if Call of the Earthbound has to be done prior to the battle being declared. The real world version of Call of the Earthbound works when the opponent declares an attack and then you choose the attack target. This one doesn't state the opponent has to declare an attack. It just says activate during your opponent's battle phase, select a monster your opponent controls. The selected monster must attack a target of your choosing. So I guess it depends on the ruling on that one. So yeah, potentially Bakura could have won if he wasn't so fast. Anyway, getting back to the duel with a 3000 attack Silent Swordsman, and in a new battle phase, Yugi attacks again, destroying Doom Caliber Knight. Marshmallow then attacks Bakura directly. Yugi ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Necro Cycle. He activates his Spirit Sword of Sealing. This card banishes one monster on the field until a monster is destroyed and then sent to Yugi's grave. Bakura banishes Silent Swordsman. He summons his Disgraced Mage and attacks Marshmallow. It is not destroyed, but Yugi still takes the damage. Bakura ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Blocken. He summons it into defense. Now, if a monster he controls is selected for an attack target, this monster can redirect the attack to itself. Then, if it is destroyed by battle, it special summons the monster Lengard from Yugi's deck. Yugi ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Cursed Twin Dolls. Bakura immediately enters his battle phase and attacks Marshmallow, attempting to go for game. However, Blocken redirects the attack to itself. It's destroyed and Lengard is summoned to the field in its place. Lengard's effect is if you would take battle damage from a battle involving a monster you control, you can destroy this face-up card instead. Now here is where Silent Swordsman would have returned to the field, since a monster went to the grave. However, due to Disgraced Mage's effect, it causes any monster it destroys by battle to instead return back to the deck. So, since a monster wasn't destroyed and sent to the grave, Silent Swordsman remains banished. Bakura sets his Cursed Twin Dolls, Narrow Corridor, and Necro Cycle face down, and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws another mysterious card. Yugi moves straight into his battle phase and orders Marshmallow to attack Disgraced Mage. Due to Marshmallow's effect, it is not destroyed by the battle. As well, due to Lengard's effect, since Yugi would take damage, this monster destroys itself instead. Since a monster finally went to the graveyard after being destroyed, Silent Swordsman returns itself to the field. Silent Swordsman attacks Disgraced Mage. However, Bakura activates Disgraced Mage's second effect, which allows it to spin itself back into the deck along with every card in Bakura's hand in order to nullify any damage he would have taken from a battle. Since Bakura's hand is empty, only Disgraced Mage is shuffled back into the deck. Yugi ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Pot of Greed. He activates it to draw 2 new cards. He gets Necro Soldier and Necro Mannequin. Bakura activates his set Cursed Twin Dolls. Now Yugi has a choice to make, a red or a black box. One contains a positive buff, the other a negative curse. Whichever one he chooses will be bestowed upon him. Whatever's in the other box will be bestowed upon the opponent. Yugi chooses the red box, which is revealed to be the positive effect. Now, whenever a card is sent to Yugi's grave, he will gain 200 life points for the rest of the duel. Bakura receives the curse box. Now, his graveyard no longer exists for the rest of the duel. All cards in the grave and any cards sent to the grave are banished, but they are classed as being on the field. The banished monsters on the field cannot attack, be attacked, block direct attacks, cannot activate their effects, cannot be used as a cost, cannot be moved from where they are unaffected by the effects of spells, traps, and effect monsters, and their effects are negated. Essentially, they are spooky ghosts hovering on the field, but are classed as being monsters on the field without actually occupying any zones. I'm going to make this an official zone for the rest of this duel, and I'm going to call it Limbo, this between life and death kind of thing. I think it's fitted. So overall, a good choice by Yugi, right? Now Bakura doesn't have a grave anymore. Well, unfortunately, this was all a part of Bakura's plan, as he summons his Necro Soldier into defense and ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Silent Magician level 0. The standby phase occurs. Necro Soldier's effect activates, which lets him once per turn summon a copy of itself from the deck. The second copy now on the field during the standby phase activates its effect, summoning the final copy of itself from the deck. Silent Swordsman's effect then activates. Since the standby phase occurred, its level and attack increases by 1. Yugi summons his Silent Magician level 0 into attack. This monster has an identical effect to Silent Magician. However, instead, each time the opponent draws a card, this is when its level increases by 1 and gains 500 attack. Yugi enters his battle phase and orders Marshmallow and Silent Magician to destroy 2 of the Necro Soldiers. They are destroyed and sent to Limbo. Before Yugi can attack with Silent Swordsman, Bakura activates his set Narrow Corridor. This card's effect makes it so now, for as long as it remains on the field, Yugi can only attack with 2 monsters per turn. Yugi, with no further plays, ends his turn. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Counterbalance. Due to Bakura drawing a card, Silent Magician's level increases by 1 along with its attack. With all the pieces in place, Bakura goes for his win condition. He activates his continuous spell, Counterbalance. Now, while this card remains on the field, during each player's end phase, the turn player must send cards from the top of their deck to the grave equal to the number of total monsters on both players' fields. The plan is to win via deck out by making Yugi just deck out all of his cards, but there's only a couple monsters on the field, right? It'll take a while. No, there's a lot of monsters on the field. Not only that, Yugi correctly points out, wait, you're at the same risk as me, since you'll have to mill from your deck as well. However, this isn't the case. Since Bakura is cursed by the Black Doll box, he technically has no graveyard anymore. So the criteria send cards to the grave can't be completed by him, meaning Bakura doesn't have to suffer any of the negative effects to the grave. And not only that, but all those spooky monsters in Limbo, they're classed as being on the field, so they count towards all the cards now that Yugi has to mill. Oh dear. And so, Bakura summons his Necro Mannequin into defense. He then activates his set Necro Cycle, which allows him to, once per turn during either player's turn, while he controls a face-up Necro Mannequin, special summon a Necro Mannequin from his deck. He uses his effect right away to summon a second copy into defense. Bakura ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws. The standby phase occurs and Silent Swordsman's level and attack increases. Bakura activates the effect of Necro Cycle to summon the last copy of Necro Mannequin from his deck into defense. Yugi enters his battle phase. He attacks and destroys one of the Necro Soldiers and one of the Necro Mannequins. The monsters are sent to Limbo. As Yugi's turn comes to an end now, Counterbalance's effect activates. Since there are 11 total monsters on the field, Yugi is forced to send the top 11 cards of his deck to the grave. Yugi loses a huge chunk of his deck. However, due to the blessing of Red Doll Box's effect, he gains 200 life points for every card that was sent to the grave. It's Bakura's turn, and he draws Necro Wall. Since Bakura drew a card, Silent Magician's level and attack increases. Bakura summons his Necro Wall into defense and then activates its effect, which lets him summon a Necro Wall token for each zombie type monster on the field other than itself. He summons 2 Necro Wall tokens into defense. Bakura ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Area from Beyond. The standby phase occurs and Silent Swordsman's attack and level increases. Yugi enters his battle phase and immediately attacks and destroys the 2 Necro Wall tokens. Since tokens disappear when they are destroyed, they are not sent to Limbo, and thus there are actually 2 less cards on the field for counterbalance during the end phase. Yugi moves into his main phase 2 and activates Area from Beyond. This card lets him activate the effect of a banished spell card. He activates Bakura's Spirit Sword of Sealing. Just to reiterate, Spirit Sword of Sealing was banished through the effect of the Black Box. Black Box only makes it so monsters are completely uninteractable in the Limbo Zone, not the spells. They're just classed as being like banished basically. So what Yugi's doing here is absolutely fine. It's fine. Yugi uses Spirit Sword's effect to banish his own monster, Silent Swordsman level 7. It is now banished until the monster Yugi controls is destroyed and sent to the grave. The reason why Yugi did this will be revealed soon. However, Silent Swordsman looks pretty betrayed in the moment, I can't lie. As the end phase occurs, Counterbalance activates, forcing Yugi to mill another 11 cards from his deck. He is left with only 5 cards. However, his life points do increase. It's Bakura's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Necro Jar. Since Bakura drew a card, Silent Magician's level increases by 1. Bakura, knowing he will win on Yugi's next end phase, decides, regardless, to push for game. He summons Necro Jar to the field into attack. Its effect is that it is unaffected by the effects of spell cards, meaning Marshmallow Glasses don't work on it. If Necro Jar is destroyed by battle, the opponent must send 1 card from the top of their deck to the grave for every multiple of 300 damage Bakura takes. Bakura crashes Necro Jar into Silent Magician level 3. Necro Jar is destroyed and Bakura takes 1400 damage. Since he took 4 multiples of 300 damage, 4 cards are milled from the top of Yugi's deck, leaving him with only 1 card left. Yugi gains life points since cards were sent to his grave. Bakura ends his turn by using the effect of his Necro Wall to special summon another 2 Necro Wall tokens to his field. I just want to point out, Bakura says something wacky this turn. He's like, oh, if you didn't take that Silent Swordsman off the field, I was going to crash it into that and win through deck out that way. Which, I don't know how he would have done that, because he would have taken so much damage he would have lost if he would have crashed his monster into that. So I thought it was a weird thing to say. It's Yugi's turn, and the final turn of the duel. He draws and gets the last card in his deck, which is of course the perfect card to save him in this dire situation, Gandora, the Dragon of Destruction. He summons it to the field by tributing his Marshmallow and Silent Magician level 3. Since these cards weren't destroyed when they were sent to the grave, Sword of Sealing doesn't release Silent Swordsman. Yugi activates the effect of his Gandora. By paying half his life points, he can destroy and then banish all other monsters on the field. However, this card destroys itself afterwards. Necro Wall, 2 Necro tokens, and 2 Necro mannequins are destroyed and then sent to Limbo. Following this, Gandora destroys itself and then goes to Yugi's grave. We don't see it, but Yugi should have gained 200 life points here, along with 400 more for Marshmallow and Silent Magician going to the grave earlier. This doesn't really matter, as now, since the monster was destroyed and went to the grave, Spirit Sword of Sealing frees Silent Magician level 7. With a 4500 attack monster, he attacks Bakura directly, winning him the duel. And, oh my god, is that blood in Yu-Gi-Oh? The duel begins and Atem goes first. He draws and his opening hand consists of the Tricky, Gaia the Fierce Knight, Obelisk the Tormentor, Bounce Spell, Summoning Clock, and Card of Sanctity. Atem activates the effect of the Tricky. By discarding 1 card, he can special summon it straight to the field. He discards Swift Gaia and then sets his quick play Bounce Spell face down on the field and then ends his turn. Right off the bat, I have to say this, would it have hurt Atem to set Summoning Clock face down as well, just in case he needed it? Also, if he would have done that, that meant he would have had 2 cards in his hand, and one of these cards is Card of Sanctity. So if he would have activated that, he would have drew
5 new cards. He would now have Obelisk the Tormentor in his hand, Rebellion, Tricky Spell 4, Mirror Force, Queen's Knight, and King's Knight. He could now set his Mirror Force. He could use his Tricky Spell to get 4 Tricky tokens straight to the field. Next turn, he could summon his Obelisk the Tormentor. Atem, you've misplayed here. It's Yugi's turn and he draws. His opening hand consists of Swords of Revealing Light, Green Gadget, Stronghold the Moving Fortress, Turn Jump, Ambush Shield, and Ground Erosion. Yugi realizes nothing in his hand can get over the Tricky just yet, so decides to activate Swords of Revealing Light. Atem is now unable to attack for 3 turns. Yugi summons Green Gadget to the field, which, when summoned, triggers its effect to add Red Gadget straight from his deck to his hand. He ends his turn by setting Stronghold the Moving Fortress face down. It's Atem's turn and he draws Rebellion. Atem enters his battle phase and activates his spell Rebellion. This card allows him to choose one monster on the opponent's side of the field and force it to attack from the opponent's side of the field. However, as Green Gadget turns to attack Yugi directly, he counters with his trap, Stronghold the Moving Fortress. For its effect, it special summons itself to the field as a trap monster into defense. Now, since there is a monster on the field, Green Gadget can't attack directly, so instead it attacks Stronghold. Since Green Gadget attacked from Yugi's side of the field, Yugi takes the damage. Atem ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Ties of the Brethren. Yugi plays it straight away. At the cost of 1000 life points, he can target one level 4 monster and special summon 2 monsters with the same level and type as that chosen monster. He summons his Red Gadget from his hand along with his Yellow Gadget from his deck. Neither one of these monsters are allowed to be tributed, or can declare an attack while they remain on the field. However, that's okay, because with all 3 gadgets on the field, the effect of Stronghold kicks in. Stronghold's attack increases to 3000. Yugi, now on the offensive, switches it to attack and enters his battle phase. As he attempts to attack the Tricky, Atem activates his Bounce spell, which lets him take 1 face-up spell on Yugi's side of the field, steal it, and then activate it straight away. He chooses Swords of Revealing Light, so now Yugi is the one who can't attack for 3 more turns. Yugi, now on the defensive, switches his Green Gadget into defense and ends his turn. It's back to Atem and he draws Tricky Spell 4. He activates it by sending the Tricky to the grave. By doing this, Atem is allowed to special summon a Tricky token for each monster on the opponent's field. However, these tokens cannot attack. Since Yugi controls 4 monsters, Atem summons 4 Tricky tokens. He tributes 3 of them to summon Obelisk the Tormentor. He moves straight into his battle phase and attacks and destroys Stronghold the Moving Fortress. Atem ends by setting Summoning Clock face down. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Silent Swordsman level 0. Yugi sets his Turn Jump, Ambush Shield, and Ground Erosion traps face down. Then he summons his Silent Swordsman into attack. With no cards left in his hand, Yugi ends his turn. It's back to Atem and he draws Mirror Force. He sets it face down to empty his hand, so that when he activates his Card of Sanctity, he can get the full benefit from it. Now both players draw until their hand is 6. Since both players' hands are empty, both players draw 6 cards. Atem gets Queen's Knight, King's Knight, Slife of the Sky Dragon, the Winged Dragon of Ra, Pot of Greed, and Book of Secret Arts. While Yugi gets Alpha the Magnet Warrior, Beta the Magnet Warrior, Gamma the Magnet Warrior, Valkyrion the Magna Warrior, Mirage Spell, and Mirage Ruler. Atem enters his battle phase and orders Obelisk to attack Silent Swordsman, attempting to go for game. As he does, Yugi activates his trap, Ground Erosion. And it is here that the first possible shenanigan reveals itself. You see, Atem reminds Yugi that spells and traps don't work on gods. However, Yugi says that this trap doesn't affect Obelisk, but it is instead targeting the ground beneath it. Which, I mean, technically, he is right. If we look at the card's effect, it says select 1 monster card zone on the field. You can send this face-up card to the graveyard to negate the effects of a monster in the selected monster zone and decrease its attack. For every one of your standby phases, this card has been face-up on the field. The fact that this thing isn't targeting Obelisk, you can just assume that all the Egyptian gods can't be targeted, right? Since the show made an effort to explain this, we're gonna say it's not a plot hole. We're gonna say it's fine, it's all good. Getting back to it though, Yugi's not done yet. He chains another face down, Turn Jump. Due to its effect, 3 turns pass by in an instant. However, unbeknownst to Yugi, Atem has played a trap card of his own, Summoning Clock. A lot of stuff happens here, so in order of resolution, Summoning Clock gains 3 turn counters. Obelisk's attack decreases by 1500 due to ground erosion, and also completely negates its effects. Meaning, and this is really important, it can't use its sacrifice ability. It can't sacrifice 2 monsters to inflict 4000 damage to the opponent and wipe the opponent's field. Silent Swordsman's attack increases by 1500. Finally, Swords Revealing Light dissipates, since 3 turns have instantly gone by. With Obelisk weakened, Atem chooses not to attack with him. However, while still in the battle phase, he activates the effect of Summoning Clock. By sending it and one other monster on the field to the graveyard, Atem can special summon monsters from his hand equal to the number of turns that have passed. The monsters summoned don't need cards to be tributed for their summon. I've highlighted that for an important reason. We'll talk about that in a sec. Atem tributes his last tricky token, and then special summons his King's Knight and Queen's Knight from his hand. The effect of King's Knight activates, which also special summons his Jack's Knight from his deck. Finally, with one more summon remaining, Atem special summons Slifer the Sky Dragon to the field, and with 3 cards left in his hand, Slifer's attack equals 3000. Yugi very oddly activates his last face-down trap, Ambush Shield, which lets him tribute 1 monster to increase his Silent Swordsman's attack by the tributed monster's defense. But hang on, just a second. Why not wait for Atem to attack with Slifer? That's like obviously what he was going to do. You would have destroyed Slifer, and Slifer would have gone to the grave, and you'd have dealt 1000 damage to Slifer. What's the deal here? Is this a misplay from Yugi? No, actually. You see, Yugi has a plan. He knows exactly how to defeat all 3 Egyptian god cards, and even better, he knows how to do it in a single move. What he's trying to do is bring all of the pieces together, and the thing to instigate all of this is Slifer the Sky Dragon. He needs that monster to stay on the field, so that is why he didn't destroy it. Though Slifer can't get over Silent Swordsman, Atem still attacks and destroys the 2 remaining gadgets with his knights. He then moves to his main phase 2. He tributes the 3 knights and summons the Winged Dragon of Ra. Ra's attack and defense become equal to the sum of the 3 monsters used for its summon. This totals 5000 attack and 4000 defense. Before Atem ends his turn, he activates Pot of Greed to draw 2 new cards, which are Berthamet and Gazelle. Wait. Did he just use Pot of Greed? He's had Pot of Greed this entire turn. Why didn't he activate it? It wouldn't be a big deal, except for the fact he has a monster on the field whose attack is determined by the number of cards in his hand. If he'd have activated this, his Slifer would have had 4000 attack. And that wouldn't be a big deal, except he would be able to destroy a monster if his attack was 4000. He could have attacked into Silent Magician, not knowing that Yugi has a face-down trap that's going to boost the monster to 4000. But it doesn't matter because Silent Swordsman would have been destroyed. That meant that Queen's Knight and King's Knight could have attacked the last 2 magnets. And now Yugi's field is completely empty, and Obelisk the Tormentor and Jack's Knight can attack directly for game. Yugi only has 1400 life points left. You can make the argument that Obelisk doesn't have an attack available. Atem attempted to attack with Obelisk and had to cancel his attack. However, Turn Jump specifically states you go forward 3 turns and restart on the 3rd turn in that battle phase. So this is technically a new battle phase, so Obelisk should have an attack still. However, it's a bit weird. Perhaps they just moved from that point and went back to that one. So we are going to say that Obelisk can't attack. It doesn't really matter because he's still got a Jack's Knight, and Jack's Knight would have won in the duel by itself. So that means Atem could have won this turn if he'd have played Pot of Greed at the start of his turn. Why didn't he? What a fool. Anyway, getting back to the duel, Atem ends his turn, and as he does, the effect of Ambush Shield ends. And wait a minute, aren't we all forgetting something? Egyptian god cards that are special summoned must go to the graveyard during the end phase of the turn they were summoned this way. So, Slifer? What are you doing? Yes, Slifer was supposed to go to the graveyard here since it was special summoned. So why didn't it? This is going to be a tough plot hole to patch up, but I think I can do it. Remember Summoning Clock, the card that special summons Slifer? Well, in its effect, it specifically states that there is no need to tribute for monsters summoned by this effect. So here we go. Perhaps the reason god cards go to the graveyard is not because they were specifically special summoned, but because they were summoned without any sacrifices. Remember, they are gods, so it makes sense that they require blood sacrifices to enter the mortal realm. If you don't feed them their blood sacrifice, they're either going to get angry or they're just going to leave. So with that in mind, since this card states the monster summoned needs no sacrifice, it would be safe to say that this card is acting as a kind of synthetic sacrifice in the place of actual monsters. This is why Slifer didn't go to the grave. Its blood sacrifice cost had been paid synthetically. It didn't know the difference. Okay? Okay. Anyway, it's Yugi's turn, and he is facing 3 Egyptian god cards. He draws and he receives Magnet Force. Yugi's standby phase occurs and Silent Swordsman's level and attack increases. Yugi sends his Alpha, Beta, and Gamma in his hand to the graveyard in order to special summon his Valkyrion. The effect of Slifer activates, which reduces the attack or defense of the monster summoned by 2000. Yugi activates his quick play spell, Mirage Spell. Its effect is that it can only be activated when the attack or defense of a monster you control would change by an opponent's effect. Gain life points equal to the amount that would have changed instead. Is this possible shenanigans number 3? No, I don't think it is. You see, this card is not altering Slifer, it is altering the result of Slifer's effect. This is Slifer's effect, this is Slifer, it's coming in. No one's touching it, no one's messing with it, it's done what it's supposed to do, and then on this side of the legality wall, that gets converted into life points instead of damage. Now, instead of Valkyrion's attack being reduced, Yugi's life points increase. Yugi ends by setting Mirage Ruler and Magnet Force face down. Eagle-eyed viewers might notice here that Yugi could absolutely attack over Obelisk or Slifer. However, we know why he doesn't attack into Slifer, because he has a plan. But could he have attacked into Obelisk? Yes, he absolutely could have. He would have done some damage, and it wouldn't really have stopped his ultimate plan. It's a very good job that he didn't, because remember, Atem has Mirror Force face down. Good play, Yugi. We'll let that one go. It's back to Atem, and he draws Dark Illusion. Slifer's attack increases to 4000. Now with enough attack, Atem goes into his battle phase and uses Slifer to destroy Silent Swordsman. The attack is successful and Yugi takes damage. Atem then attacks with Ra, targeting Valkyrion. Valkyrion is also destroyed. Obelisk attempts to go for game. However, Yugi reveals his face-down Mirage Ruler, which makes it so all monsters destroyed this turn return back to the field, and all damage taken is returned back to how it was. Although, Yugi must pay 1000 life points. Obelisk, unable to get over Valkyrion and Silent Swordsman, is forced to end its battle. Atem ends his turn. I feel like I'm jumping in a lot with this tool. Technically, in the real world, if Silent Swordsman came back, its attack would go all the way back down to 1000. But it is the anime, so perhaps it comes back how it was when it left the field. It's Yugi's turn, and he's ready to do the impossible. He draws Magnet Reverse. The standby phase occurs and Silent Swordsman moves up to level 5. Yugi activates the effect of his Valkyrion. By attributing itself, it summons all 3 Magna Warriors from the grave to the field. Upon each of their summons, Slifer's effect kicks in, attempting to reduce the defense of all 3 by 2000. This is where Yugi reveals his Magnet Force. Now, until the end phase, any rock-type monster targeted by an effect can now be redirected to any other monster of the owner's choice. All 3 effects are redirected back at the gods, reducing their attack instead of the Magna Warriors. Could this be another shenanigan? Yes. This one is literally moving the effect to something else now, but I guess it's not targeting, and maybe the Egyptian gods just specifically can't be targeted, so it's fine. Now, with all the monsters weakened, Silent Swordsman attacks Obelisk. Atem activates his face-down Mirror Force to destroy all of Yugi's monsters. However, this is exactly what Yugi wanted. Yugi plays Magnet Reverse. This allows him to special summon Valkyrion the Magna Warrior back to the field in face-up defense. The effect of Atem's Slifer the Sky Dragon activates again, however yet again the effect is returned. And now, since Obelisk's attack is 0, it is destroyed. Yugi moves into his main phase 2. He uses the effect of Valkyrion to summon Alpha, Beta, and Gamma back to the field. Slifer's effect triggers once again, and yet again the effects bounce back. Both Slifer and Ra's attack go down to 0, and as a result, both are destroyed. Yugi ends his turn. It's Atem's turn and he draws Polymerization. He activates it and fuses his Gazelle and Baphomet together to make Chimera the flying mythical beast. Since this isn't Battle City rules, Atem is able to attack the same turn he fusion summoned. He destroys Yugi's Alpha and ends his turn. It's back to Yugi and he draws Buster Blader. He sacrifices Beta and Gamma to summon it. With this being the only card in his possession, his only option is to attack and destroy Chimera. The attack succeeds and Yugi inflicts damage to Atem for the first time in the duel. Chimera's effect then activates, special summoning Baphomet from the grave. Yugi ends his turn. It's Atem's turn and he draws Beast of Gilfer. He sacrifices his Baphomet and summons Beast of Gilfer into face-up defense. He sets Book of Secret Arts face down and ends his turn. Could he have summoned Gilfer into face down defense? Yes. Would that have been the better play? Yes. Did he do it? No. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Soul Rope. He sets it face down and then moves into his battle phase. He attacks Beast of Gilfer. It is destroyed, however its effect reduces the attack of Buster Blader. Yugi ends his turn. It's Atem's move and he draws Awakening from Beyond. He activates it, which allows him to add one monster from his grave by letting Yugi draw 2 cards. Yugi draws Spell Textbook and Gandora the Dragon of Destruction, while Atem adds Swiftgaia the Fierce Knight, a card that he had discarded on the first turn. It turns out that Atem had always planned for Yugi to defeat the Egyptian god cards, so on his very first move, he planned for that eventuality by discarding a very powerful card. Now with an empty field, Atem summons Gaia without a sacrifice. He uses it to attack and destroy Buster Blader. However, as this happens, Yugi activates his Soul Rope. Since one of his monsters was destroyed, by paying 1000 life points, he can special summon any level 4 or lower monster from his deck. He chooses Witch of the Black Forest. Atem ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Summon Skull. He sacrifices Witch of the Black Forest in order to summon it, and then, due to the Witch of the Black Forest's effect, he adds a monster with less than 1500 defense from his deck straight to his hand. Summon Skull then attacks and destroys Swiftgaia. Yugi ends his turn. It's Atem's turn, and now Atem's back is against the wall. If he doesn't get the card he needs, he will lose next turn. From this point onward, Atem has the power to will whatever card he needs to keep him in the duel to the top of his deck. Remember that the Millennium Puzzle's unique ability was that it granted a luck boost in dire situations. So, with Atem wielding this power, he draws Big Shield Gardener, which is just the card he needed to keep him in this duel for another turn. Are there better cards that he could have willed to the top of the deck to perhaps put him in an advantageous position? Yes. So why didn't he get those? Well, that's because that's not how this ability works. Imagine out of your entire deck, you know that there's 6 cards that can keep you in the duel this turn. You don't get to pick one of them specifically, it's kind of you get one of those cards at random. However, the more desperate the situation becomes, the more that power sort of focuses in. He's not super desperate right now, so that's why I got Big Shield Gardener. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Pot of Greed. He activates it straight away and draws 2 new cards, Watapon and Curse of Dragon. Due to Watapon's effect, since it was added to his hand, it special summons itself. Yugi then sacrifices it to summon Curse of Dragon. Knowing Big Shield Gardener's effect well, Yugi attacks into it with Summon Skull. He takes 100 damage, however Big Shield Gardener switches to attack due to its own effect. Curse of Dragon then attacks and deals a huge chunk of damage to Atem, putting him in an even more desperate situation. Yugi ends his turn. It's Atem's turn, and through his will, Dark Magic Curtain moves to the top of his deck. Atem pays half of his life points to activate it. He's able to special summon Dark Magician from his deck straight to the field. Atem then activates his face down Book of Secret Arts. Atem attacks and destroys Summon Skull. He ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Blockman. Seeing Atem's life points are below 1000, he sets his Marshmallow face down. Now, if Atem attacks into it, he will take 1000 damage and lose the duel. Yugi switches his Curse of Dragon into defense and ends his turn. Atem, knowing exactly what that face down monster was, since Yugi showed him when he added it to his hand, he knows if nothing changes, he will lose the duel this turn. So Atem wills 1000 Knives to the top of his deck. He uses it to destroy Yugi's face down Marshmallow to avoid its effect damage. He then attacks and destroys Yugi's Curse of Dragon. Atem ends his turn. It's back to Yugi and he draws Soul Shield. He normal summons Blockman into defense and then sets Soul Shield face down and ends his turn. Seeing Yugi go pure defense, Atem wills Dark Spear to the top of his deck. He equips it to Dark Magician so that it can now deal piercing battle damage. But Yugi plays his trap Soul Shield. By paying half his life points, he can instantly end the battle phase. This works, and Atem is forced to end his turn also. It's Yugi's turn, and he draws Gold Sarcophagus. First, he activates it by banishing one card from his deck face down. If Atem ever activates or summons the same card as the one chosen, that summoned monster or activated card is negated. Yugi chooses Monster Reborn. Yugi follows this play by activating the effect of his Blockman. By tributing it, he can summon one block token for each turn it was on the field. Now with enough materials, he sacrifices both his tokens to summon Gandora, the Dragon of Destruction. He activates its effect at the cost of half his life points. All monsters on the field are now banished. However, before this effect can wipe out Dark Magician, Atem plays his Dark Illusion, which makes Dark Magician unaffected by monster effects and incapable of being destroyed by battle this turn. However, Yugi is allowed to draw one card as a result. Yugi draws Magician's Circle, he sets it and spell textbook face down and ends his turn. It's Atem's turn, and now since it appears he is in a winning position, his luck boost seems to subside. As such, the card he draws is never actually revealed. So, assumingly, it was nothing that could have helped him out this turn, and possibly it was an unplayable card. So maybe like the ritual spell, but without the ritual monster. Something along them lines. With the match within his reach, Atem enters his battle phase and attacks directly. However, Yugi activates his Magician's Circle, which lets both players special summon a spellcaster type monster with less than 2000 attack from their decks. Yugi summons Silent Magician level 0, while Atem summons Dark Magician Girl. Atem attempts to attack for game again, however Yugi activates Spell Textbook. By discarding all of the cards in his hand, he's allowed to draw one card, and if that card drawn is a spell, he can activate it immediately. Since Yugi has no cards in his hand, he doesn't discard anything, which would have been an illegal play, but luckily the card states, if any. Yugi draws and miraculously gets the spell Card of Sanctity. Yugi draws 6 new cards. These 6 cards are never revealed, nor are they used, nor do they really matter to the story, as he doesn't need them. Atem, sensing the potential for Yugi to make a comeback, draws his 5 cards and manages to will Monster Reborn to the top of his deck. Alongside this, he also gets Magicians Unite and 3 other cards that are never actually revealed to us or even played. Assumingly, again, they were dead draws. But to be fair, with the 2 cards that we know what they are, he thinks he has game with them, so why would he need more cards? In his mind, right? The effect of Silent Magician triggers. For every card that Atem drew, Silent Magician moves up a level, and its attack increases by 500. Now, the tables have turned. If Atem's attack is successful, he will be the one to now lose the duel. Atem activates his quick play, Magicians Unite, which merges Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl together into a single monster with 3000 attack. The boost isn't enough to get over Silent Magician, but it is enough for Atem to stay in the duel. And it is here where we get the final shenanigan of the entire duel. Atem activates Monster Reborn to bring back Slifer the Sky Dragon. Since Atem has 4 cards in his hand, Slifer's attack equals 4000. Atem's plan is to attack with Slifer for game. However, my dude, to activate Monster Reborn, you had to leave your battle phase, so you don't have any attacks left. And that also means during the end phase, Slifer goes to the graveyard. What's the deal? This is the last time, Konami. This is the last time I fill a plot hole in for you. Perhaps the Battle City rule, normal spell cards can be activated like quick plays during your battle phase or set face down and then they basically become quick play spell cards, has carried over from Battle City into this duel. But at the end of the day, who the hell cares if Atem activated Monster Reborn in his battle phase or outside of his battle phase? Because it's about to get negated. Yugi reveals that the card that he had banished was in fact his own Monster Reborn. Atem's Monster Reborn is negated, and Slifer returns back into the grave. This play holds two special meanings. Yugi knew the pharaoh so well he predicted and planned for this eventuality, solidifying that Yugi really was the true king of games. And it also shows Yugi's resolve to free the pharaoh's soul, because remember, he was hesitant to lose one of his closest friends. This maneuver is saying to the pharaoh, the souls of the dead aren't meant to linger in the world of the living. It was Yugi's way of saying goodbye through the duel. Atem, with a proud smile on his face, ends his turn. It's Yugi's turn and the final turn of the duel. He draws, but it doesn't matter what it is, as he simply enters his battle phase and attacks for game. The pharaoh is defeated. His soul has been set free, and Yugi is now the new king of games. Yugi cries at the loss of his closest companion, the one that helped him grow so much over his journey. Atem leaves for the afterlife with a smile on his face, giving a final thumbs up to everyone that was a part of his life. And I think as well, that thumbs up is also to all of us. He's given us a thumbs up saying thank you for coming on this journey with me. What a beautiful ending to a great series.